What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I am finally bringing you the deck that I have been hyped about since Guardians Rising was announced. Well, actually, technically not since it was announced, because the card was announced after the set was announced, but either way, it's a deck centered around Turtonator-GX, and before I get into it, just a reminder that if you guys liked this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and click that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton. And lets us do more for you guys. And as for the question of the day, now you might look at this list and be like, okay, standard. I mean, there's Volcanions, you got a Hoopa, Shaymin, a Lele, and wait, why is there a Sudowoodo in there? Well, so anybody that knows, anybody that's played Volcanion knows that, okay, this deck has a little bit of trouble with Rainbow Road and Mega Rayquaza, among other matchups. I'm not saying that this deck only loses to those guys, but Mega Rayquaza and Rainbow Road give this deck some problems to the point where people were even running Parallel City in Volcanion. And Parallel City is a card that actually is it's detrimental to Volcanion no matter which side you play it. However, Sudowoodo is basically a Pokemon version of Parallel City. Now, Roadblock, it's reminiscent of the old Ditto, to where your opponent can only use 4 bench spots. That's incredible, and that immediately helps out against Rainbow Road and Mega Rayquaza. And for those of you that just play in general, you know how devastating Parallel City is to every single deck, no matter what you run. I mean, every deck likes having 5 bench spots, and being limited to 1 less or 2 less is really problem causing. Really causes problems. There we go. Sorry, I can't English today. So Sudowoodo just is such an underrated card. I think Roadblock is an ability that a lot of people have overlooked. And I mean, not gonna lie, Guardians Rising is an incredible, incredible set. I mean, you have Lele, you have Garbodor, Field Blower. I mean, just to name a few, those things are going to change the meta so much. And they are incredible, incredible cards that, in my opinion, deserve the hype that they're getting. But with those cards that have such incredible hype, cards like Sudowoodo that aren't inherently ridiculous get very overlooked. So I actually encourage you guys to try out Sudowoodo as a 1-card tech in decks that have like bad matchups against like Mega Ray and stuff like that. Heck, Sudowoodo helps out against almost any deck. And while I'm not going to say that it's splashable, I am going to say that Sudowoodo is a card that fits in to certain decks that have bad matchups against Sky Field based decks. So Sudowoodo, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated and overlooked cards. And my question of the day is, what card do you guys think is very underrated and overlooked from Guardians Rising? Let me know in the comment section down below and why. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. But on to the actual deck, like I said, centered around Turtonator-GX. And when I saw this card, I immediately was like, well, this card was literally designed for Volcanion. No two ways about it. This card, I mean, every single attack is perfect for Volcanion. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm only going to say that the first 2 attacks are perfect for Volcanion. You'll see why in a little bit. So Turtonator, 190 HP. I mean, it's a basic that has 190 HP. Ah, stupid Java. Leave me alone. But 190 HP with Fighting Fury Belt gets 230. And then Shell Trap. It's a low energy cost, 2 energy for 20. It does 20 damage, so 2 for 20. You're like, wow, that is awful. Well, first of all, Turtonator is a basic fire, so it gets powered up by Steam Up. Second of all, Shell Trap was why I was so excited about this, because 20, and then if your opponent attacks your Turtonator next turn, you do put 8 damage counters on them. That in itself is ridiculous. Let's think about a situation. Okay, let's say you have a Fighting Fury Belt on Turtonator, you have 4 Volcanion down, you have 4 Steam Ups, and then you Shell Trap. That does 150 damage right there for a 2 energy, which is insane. But then if your opponent attacks you back, all of a sudden, they're going to be hit for a 230 total with the damage from Shell Trap. I mean, I know that there's a bunch of GXs that can live that now. I mean, like, actually Solgaleo will die to a Shell Trap anyway because of weakness. But I mean, there are some that will live it. However, 230 for essentially 2 energy is incredible and is really hard to pass up. Another attack that is perfect for Volcanion is Bright Flame. 160 damage, so it's basically a Volcanic Heat with a Steam Up already built in. And for people that have played Volcanion, you know that, okay, yeah, you can hit for a bunch of damage, but the biggest attack that you had was Volcanic Heat, so you really had to rely on Steam Up. Not as much with Turtonator. Turtonator with a Fighting Fury Belt hits for 170, which is plenty. A single Steam Up and you're hitting for 200 damage. That is fantastic for 3 energy, and also Turtonator, in my opinion, has the better of the 2 drawbacks for the big attacks. I mean, you just discard 2 energy, whereas Volcanion can't attack, and yeah, there are ways around it with like Olympia, Escape Rope, Switch, stuff like that, but I'm okay with discarding energy because Volcanion is meant to have energy in the discard pile, and there's so many ways of recurring it. And while I said that these 2 attacks were perfect for Volcanion, Nitro Tank GX is not only perfect, it is literally like a godsend for Volcanion for a single fire energy. So you can Nitro Tank after you Bright Flame easily. Attach 5 fire energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way you like. That's just absurd. I mean, Power Heater was already strong enough, but Nitro Tank as the GX attack, this is a late game GX attack, mind you. All of a sudden, you can power up a Volcanion, you can power up this Turtonator. I mean, okay, 1 energy on board, 5 fire energy in the discard pile, and you Nitro Tank. All of a sudden, you have a Turtonator that's ready to Bright Flame, and you have a Volcanion that's ready to Volcanic Heat. I mean, just from a single GX attack, that is ridiculously powerful in this deck. As for the numbers of Pokemon, now I know I'm running 3 Shaymin and 1 Lele, but I don't want you guys looking at, okay, well, Styx in the past 2 videos has done only 1 Lele with more Shaymin, so I really don't have to worry about getting Lele. No, get Lele as soon as you can. Get as many Lele as possible, as quickly as possible, because this card is ridiculous. It just so happens that in the last 2 decks I've done, those 2 are kind of the only, well, I don't want to say the only ones. They're more conducive to Shaymin because Trevenant Vileplume was a turn 1 explosion deck, and this one we run Hoopa, so both of those are more conducive to running Shaymin as opposed to Lele. However, I still think that like a 2-1 of Lele Shaymin is going to be the standard. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm feeling as the meta progresses. But in this deck, again, because we're running Hoopa, we run more Shaymin, so we're running 3 of those. Also, we don't mind giving up the bench spot because we run Sky Field, so bench spots aren't necessarily at a premium. Plus, we have ways of discarding 1 Sudowoodo. Again, ridiculously powerful. I could go on and on about this, but I hopefully will just be able to show you for myself when I play this deck. You guys will see how good this is. 2-2 of Turtonator and Volcanion, and I'm not going to lie, this deck I have been changing and altering since Turtonator came out. I was using like proxies. I think I used like Jirachi as Lele. I mean, I didn't actually play with it, but I was using proxies to kind of build it. I was using like Jirachi as Lele, Turtwig as Turtonator just because of the name, and then a different Sudowoodo. But either way, I mean, I've put so much thought into this deck, and it's a deck that easily is the most that I've ever put into one. So this is a lot of optimization from my gameplay. But again, a lot of this is my opinion. I still think this is a very solid list. But among those things, we're running 2-2 of Turtonator and Volcanion. Now, one thing that I noticed looking at a lot of Volcanion lists were that you ran 3 baby Volcanion and 4 regular Volcanion. So, ooh, I got another trade. I'll have to see what that is later. But either way, so I initially just tried out 2 Volcanion, 2 baby Volcanion, and 1 Turtonator, just like, okay, switch out a baby Volcanion for a Turt. But I found that a lot of the time, I wanted to have a second Turtonator. Like, when I would Nitro Tank, I would want to power up a Turtonator on the bench. I wouldn't want to power the active one up and just leave it there to be attacked. I would like to power up another Turtonator, so 2-2 is what I found works best in this deck. Definitely try it out for yourself and let me know what your guys' thoughts are on those numbers. Running 1 Hoopa to search out Volcanion and Shaymin, 1 Lele because Wonder Tag just get you a supporter, and we run enough tech supporters that Lele is amazing, and then absolute max number of Volcanion so that we can steam up and get those guys in play as quickly and consistently as possible to steam up to hit for more damage. I'm going to try to speed up a little bit just because I know you guys want to see this deck and don't want to necessarily see me talk, so if I skip over something from these, I apologize. 1 Escape Rope. I decided to run Escape Rope instead of Switch just because it has the added effect of potentially disrupting your opponent, and we don't want to necessarily run like 4 Float Stones because with Field Blower, Float Stones aren't as safe as they used to be. Escape Rope, again, can act as a pseudo Lysandre. while also getting your heavy retreat Pokemon out of the active. One Field Blower, and this card has been a long time coming. We've needed Energy and Stadium Hate for a very long time. Well, Stadium Hate that's not delinquent. And Field Blower is incredible because this deck used to have a ton of trouble with Garbodor. If your opponent got a Garbodor set up, you better hope that you had a 3 Energy Volcanion, Baby Volcanion, or Volcanion-EX set up. Field Blower allows you to reuse your abilities and then knock out Garbodor potentially with a Shell Trap or a Power Heater, which is absolutely absurd. And then also Field Blower opens up cool plays like you fill up your bench from Sky Field first turn, you have 8 Pokemon on your bench, Field Blower away your stadium, get rid of the Shaymins and the Hoopa, play down another Sky Field, and boom, you have 3 more bench spots to work with. Just a lot of amazing stuff that can go with Field Blower. For Max Elixir, I'm running that so that I can Shell Trap first turn. That's really the main goal of why I ran Max Elixir. However, the ability to potentially even Bright Flame turn 1 is incredible, and I really like Max Elixir in Volcanions. Rescue Stretcher, this deck has enough ways of recurring energy to where Rescue Stretcher is basically just the good stuff that we wanted from Super Rod. We basically just wanted the Pokemon recursion from Super Rod. Rescue Stretcher does that, but also gives you the option of just grabbing 1 Pokemon in your discard pile, putting it into your hand. For Ultra Ball to guaranteed get what we want when we want. For VS Seeker to reuse all of our supporters. And as for these supporters, I'm running 3-3 of N and Sycamore. I'm actually leaning a little more towards this line, especially as Garbodor is... sorry about that. My mouse slipped down. Especially as Garbodor is going to become a bigger threat in this meta. We don't want to just discard our items as willy-nilly as we used to. So having Shuffle Draw is very, very nice. Just having more options, but again, Sycamore is ridiculously powerful, and you can't beat just get a new hand. So, I mean, that's why still 3 Sycamore, but also 3 N. 2 Lysandre, because Lysandre is amazing. And then as for these tech supporters, running 1 Pokemon Ranger for Volcanic Heat, and also theoretically for Jolteon, although I haven't run into Jolteon at all. 1 Olympia to help out with the switching from our big retreat Pokemon. 1 Lillie. If you want to get rid of Lillie, I completely understand. I just love the potential for a Lele into Lillie. So not only do you get 8 cards on your first turn, you also get a little bit of alliteration right there. And finally, we got the Fisherman, which is incredible in Volcanion. You can steam up a couple times, Fisherman, get those right back into your hand, steam up a couple more times, and then be able to still manually attach for the turn. 3 Sky Field, because we get to take advantage of Sky Field and our opponent doesn't necessarily because of Sudowoodo, and Sky Field lets us get more stuff into play. And then as for the tools, I know as soon as I saw Turtonator, I was like, oh, Bursting Balloon. Well, I'm not running Bursting Balloon in this deck. I decided that Bursting Balloon was a little bit too gimmicky and not as consistently good as Fighting Fury Belt or Float Stone, so I just decided to go with those guys. Because in most cases, the ability to, well, the fact that Shell Trap would put 8 damage counters on your opponent is enough to where you don't need the extra 6 from Bursting Balloon. It's really cool, and I'm probably definitely still going to do another deck on it. But for the time being, this is just, I tried to make this as competitive as possible, so I decided to ditch the gimmick and go for more consistency with Fighting Fury Belt and then 3 Float Stone, then finally 11 Fire Energy, because, I mean, statistically speaking, over 1/6 of our deck is Fire Energy, so theoretically we should be able to hit Max Elixir every time. That doesn't actually happen, but I just like to play the odds. So yeah, I've talked for way too long. Let's go ahead and see this deck in action. Alrighty, we have found one against Malgia Land with... honestly, I have no idea what that is. There was some Dark, there was some Psychic, there was some Fighting, so this could actually be a really cool deck. Unfortunately, we do not win the coin flip, which really doesn't overall matter in this deck because you are able to Power Heater first turn if you hit a couple... Well, if you hit 1 Max Elixir, get an attachment, and like a Float Stone or an Escape Rope, you can Shell Trap first turn. So this deck really does not mind going first or second. I mean, in my opinion, I always like going first. I mean, that's just kind of a personal preference of mine. Well, unless you're playing Night March, then you always want to go second. But that's beside the point. But I do start off with a very, very nice hand. I mean, I have a Fire Energy, I got a couple Ultra Balls, I have a Float Stone, and I have a Volcanion active, so it can take really whatever my opponent does. I can just throw a Float Stone on it. And the reason I started Volcanion instead of Turtonator, this way I can potentially Shell Trap turn 1 by hitting a Max Elixir onto it. Yeah, I know I'm going to have to waste a Float Stone to get Volcanion out of the active spot, but Float Stones were going to go on the Volcanion anyway. and my opponent even Sky Fields. So this turn is actually turning into something that's going to be very scary for my opponent. Yeah, we do see a couple Zorua, which will be a real pain. The fact that my opponent's playing Zoroark, and it looks like, I mean, it looks like it's a... Okay, there it is. I was about to say, it kind of looked like a Passimian deck, but with Zoroark, which I think is a really cool tech, being completely honest. But, I mean, Mew, without a Fighting Fury Belt, is going to get knocked out by the residual from Shell Trap. And also, I can just focus on power heatering, if that's a word, with my baby Volcanion in order to be able to power up stuff in the back, while also only giving up a couple on the prize trade. So I'm going to have to be careful about how many Pokemon I bench. But at the same time, I mean, I have Field Blower, which I can use later to be able to do that, to get rid of the Sky Field and limit myself down to a bench of 5 again. And that's why Field Blower is so good. But let's go ahead and actually Steam Up. That way, I mean, I just have one less card in my hand. I'm going to have to Steam Up at least once anyway this turn. Well, yeah, I'm going to Steam Up at least once anyway to get the guaranteed knockout with Shell Trap or Power Heater. So let's go ahead and Ultra Ball, get rid of the Ranger and the Fisherman. Probably just grab a baby Volcanion. That way, I'm not putting a Turtonator or 2-prize attacker up in harm's way of being knocked out by Zorua next turn. And I guess my opponent saw that my setup was too good and decided to forfeit. So, unfortunate that we really didn't get to do much at all that match. I mean, you still saw the setup was very good. I would have been able to play that out and get a free prize while powering stuff up, but too short of a match. Let's go ahead and try to find another one with this deck. Alrighty, we found another one. Hopefully this one goes a little bit better against N-Box. I mean, it would have been kind of cool if we were against H-Box, but alas, we are not. And shoutouts to anybody who understands that reference. But we do win the coin flip, and I will want to go first just because, I mean, I saw the grass type. I don't want to have to deal with my opponent potentially getting, like, potentially having a turn 1 lock on me. We should be at the advantage because we are running fire type against grass type, and that looks to be the main focus of this deck. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and this could have Araquanid, but that's also, you know what? That's also where Tapu Lele can come in handy, because Araquanid would completely shut this deck down otherwise, but Lele can attack into it. So Lele, once again, just proving how ridiculous it is. Let's first go ahead and Ultra Ball. Grab a baby Volcanion. That way I can potentially start knocking out like Fomantis, Lurantis, and stuff like that with just power heaters while powering up stuff onto my bench. So let's go ahead and play that down there. Shaymin for 6 cards. Holding on to the Lele so I can get like a Sycamore or something when I need to. And oh, there we go. So going to go ahead and Skyfield, play that down, Fighting Fury Belt up my baby Volcanion, and play Lele to be able to grab a Sycamore probably. I could grab a Lillie, but that actually would only net me 6 cards as opposed to Sycamore being able to net me 7. And there's, I mean, yeah, a VS Seeker is always nice to have, but I mean, there's nothing in my hand that I particularly like 1000% needed or anything like that. So unfortunately, okay, do I want to, let's go ahead and retreat into my baby Volk. And Max Elixir, see if I can hit something. Yes, I do hit that, so I can start powering up for a Volcanic Heat next turn. Just in case my opponent has some form of item lock, I'm going to go ahead and play that there. And yeah, just going to end my turn. Just let baby Volcanion take a potential flower supply, anything like that. If I'm able to get 2 more Volcanion down and Steam Up, I will be in a great position. So yeah, we do see the Oddish. I'm glad I grabbed that Sycamore. Just because, well, it's not like just because. It's literally otherwise I would not have been able to draw any cards and would have just had to sit there where I'll be like, well, can't do much anything right now. So that's unfortunate. The Float Stone does come down onto the Oddish. My opponent's going to Ultra Ball probably for a Shaymin to be able to draw some more cards. Looks like my opponent's going to get a... What? Sorry for the silence. I just literally don't understand that play at all. Well, first things first, I'm going to Steam Up. But I really just don't understand that play. Why would you empty your hand and not grab something like a... I mean, even if you don't have Shaymin, like running Oranguru or something like that. But, I mean, either way, I mean, that's their prerogative. I'm going to slap another Fire Energy onto my active Volcanion. And unfortunately, I don't draw into an Ultra Ball or anything like that to get me a couple more Volks. That's just fine. I'll be able to Power Heater, set this Lurantis up to be 2-hit KO'd next turn by another Power Heater. There's no way he can knock me out, even if he Lysanders something up. I mean, Lele and Shaymin both have 1 retreat cost apiece. Volcanion has a Float Stone, and Baby Volk would have just been able to run town on him. So, yeah, I mean, that was another match. Grass is everywhere in this current format, so this deck has a lot stronger of a matchup, especially on the ladder. But, again, way too short of a match. Let's try to find another one. Alrighty, we found another one against a Maxi Villanueva, and in all honesty, if I saw that type combination in the previous standard format, I would have started crying because that just straight up looks like a Seismitoad Giratina deck. One of the worst decks to face, in my opinion. And, okay, we actually get another pretty good start. I mean, I'll be able to put a Volcanion up active, I'll be able to put a Turtonator on the bench, potentially Max Elixir a couple times to this little Turtonator, and okay. That's scary. So what I am going to do is go ahead and Ultra Ball, get rid of... I hate to do this. I hate to get rid of 3 Ultra Balls on one play, but the potential of a Max Elixir is just too good to pass up. So I'm going to Hoopa, go ahead and grab probably Volk Shaymin. Let's do that, and then see if I can hit both these Max Elixirs. I mean, then again, if I whiff one of them, then it's like, well, shouldn't have gotten rid of the Ultra Ball. So I do hit the first one. Let's see, can I hit the second one? Which I do. Okay, so I'm glad. I mean, I never like getting rid of 3 Ultra Balls on 1 Ultra Ball, but in this case, it ended up paying off, and ew. So this is going to be a very resource-intensive first turn, unfortunately. Do I want to end my turn right here? I mean, I'm going to have to get rid of the VS Seekers anyway with Sycamore. So what I am going to do is play down Sky Field, finally play down the broken Sudowoodo, and then, okay, so let's play down a Baby Volk, play a Fighting Fury Bell onto it, and then I'm just going to end my turn right there. I'm not going to play, I'm leaving that last spot open because I want to be able to play down my Lele in order to be able to get a supporter, but at the same time, I don't just want to drop Lele if my opponent ends me or something like that. So I'm just leaving that spot open. At the very worst, or yeah, at the worst, all I have to do is put a Sky Field back into play if my opponent counters my Stadium. And if he does, I'll be able to get rid of my Hoopa and Shaymin, play down my own Sky Field again, play another Volcanion and a Lele, and just go from there. So no matter what my opponent does this turn, I'm actually in a really good position. I could even... I actually might be able to knock out this Glaceon. Yeah, I draw into an energy, so I'll be able to knock out the Glaceon. Bright Flame does 160, 10 more is 170. I'm not wasting, I'm not messing around. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that fire energy onto it. Let's Lele grab a... do I want to grab an N? Or do I want to just grab a Sycamore? Because my opponent has... I guess he doesn't have as many cards in his hand as I thought, so I'm just going to go ahead and Sycamore. I mean, losing 1 Volcanion and a couple Skyfield isn't too big of a deal anyway. And, wow, I even get a couple energy to steam up, so what I think I'm going to do is... Actually, let's do 1 steam up. I mean, I know that I'm hitting for 170, and I know that Glaceon has 170, but I'm just paranoid about me missing, like, some non-seen parallel city, maybe like an ancient trait, the Delta Wild trait, that gives you a 20 damage resistance to fire. And I mean, that was completely unnecessary, but I just wanted to 100% make sure that I was going to be in a fine position. So we knock out the Glaceon. My opponent had to play down a Dragonite last turn to make sure that he didn't lose, and I don't think there's a way that I can just straight up win this turn. I mean, I'll be able to attack, but I don't think there's a way I can just win. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and... Ooh, Max Elixir. Get that onto the Baby Volk, and then let's Fisherman, grab 3 Fire Energy, hindsight 2020, probably should have steam upped the one in my hand. That way I could have Fisherman for 4, but I mean, it really doesn't. I mean, I'm still able to steam up with every single Volcanion and have an attachment for the turn, so it's one of those little minor things. If I was in a much closer match, then I probably would have, then I definitely would have made sure to do that in the correct order. But what's really cool right here is we might be able to get a knockout with the recoil from Shell Trap. Like, that is a definite possibility right now, because if my opponent has another DCE in his hand and he attacks my Turtonator, well, he's just going to knock himself out with the recoil from Shell Trap, which is really, really awesome and is something that I've wanted to have happen ever since I saw Turtonator come out. And okay, we see this second DCE. Is my opponent just going to attack and YOLO it? No, he's not, unfortunately. So my opponent does play a Pokemon Center Lady. Yeah, he will get hit. He will get hit for 80 damage, so that way all I need is a single Steam Up in order to be able to Shell Trap for the win. But luckily I do have that Fisherman, so I will be able to play that sucker down. I even draw into a Fire Energy, but let's get all 4 of these Fire into my hand, be able to, I mean, I have to Steam Up once, which, okay, I actually wasn't going to be bad-mannered and go for, like, 6 Steam Up, or go for all 3 Steam Ups and then Shell Trap. I was literally just going to go for the one that I needed to take the win, but my opponent saw that I pretty much guaranteed had the win unless I was ridiculously stupid and, like, manually attached to Hoopa or something like that. But either way, I mean, it was a better match. We were at least able to attack a couple times, but still, way too short. Let's try to find another one, and hopefully it is our last one, and it's a good one. Alrighty, we have found another one against, could this be a Volcanion mirror match? That would actually be really, really cool if that's what it was. We do win the coin flip, meaning we will get to go first, and well, considering we saw the Salaman's coin, I'm actually going to have to be kind of careful about how I play that out, because, I mean, I don't want Salamence to just have, like, free reign and absolutely destroy stuff, because, I mean, that's... Salamence just wrecks Volcanion in itself. I mean, being able to hit for 50 more for each Pokemon that you have on the... for each EX that you have in play. So let's go ahead and Sky Field. Let's play Shaymin, and this is 100% a mirror match. That is so cool. What I think I might end up doing... okay, I get a Baby Volk. Let's go ahead and play that. I think play that down. Let's see. Yeah, let's do that, and then do I want to retreat my Turtonator and try to get 2 energy onto it? Or do I want to just try to get a Power Heater with my Baby Volk? So, I'm just going to try to get a Power Heater. Unfortunately, we missed the first Max Elixir. We do hit the second, luckily, which I'm going to throw onto the Baby Volk. And then, let's go ahead and get 6 more cards, see if we can get, like, a Hoopa or something like that. And we get, well, might as well be a Hoopa. I'll even get another Turtonator with Fighting Fury Belt, so that's going to be really, really nice. Let's Ultra Ball get rid of the Olympia and the Water Energy to grab... Actually, I don't even need to grab the Hoopa yet. I'm just going to grab the Sudowoodo. That way my opponent cannot take advantage of having Skyfield in play. Even if he plays down another stadium, he's still not going to be able to do anything about the Sudowoodo. And would you look at that? Man, Sudowoodo's... oh, Sudowoodo is just ridiculously good. But for now, let's go ahead and Ultra Ball, get rid of the Sycamore and the regular energy to grab a Volcanion. I was going to grab a Hoopa, but then I realized, oh wait, there's only like 1 more bench spot left. And yeah, let's call it a turn. This Turtonator can take a hit. That is just fine with me. I could have retreated into my Baby Volk and let it take a Power Heater. However, I decided that... Okay, so we do see the Fighting Fury Belt. That's annoying. But I decided that Turtonator is definitely more than capable of taking hits. I mean, it'll get knocked out by a Volcanic Heat anyway. And getting, like, 80, 90... Getting, like... Well, I guess it would be 90 damage in this case from a double Steam Up Power Heater. But we don't even see that. We just see my opponent hitting my Turtonator for 30 damage. That is fine with me. And... Ooh, I can do something really cheeky right here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and Field Blower. Get rid of the Fighting Fury Belt on my opponent's Volcanion, obviously. and then ditch the Sky Field. That way, I can get rid of both of my Shaymins off of the bench, and then I can potentially draw into another Sky Field. That way I can play down more Volcanion, play down the Hoopa, play down the Lele, just give myself more open bench spots to work with. Unfortunately, I do not get that, but, I mean, that's fine with me. Do I want to Rescue Stretcher just yet? I don't think so, but for now, I am just going to go ahead and Max Elixir onto my Turtonator, and Max Elixir once again, see if I can hit it. No, I do not, unfortunately. But for the time being, let's just go ahead and retreat into Baby Volk and Power Heater. There's absolutely zero use going for Nitro Tank GX, because Power Heater literally does exactly... Well, Power Heater and Nitro Tank would do the exact same thing in this case, because I only had 2 fire energy in my discard pile, except for the fact that Power Heater actually does 20 damage, and I have my Nitro Tank for later in the game. So, I mean, we're in a great position right now. My opponent, unfortunately, it looks like he hasn't drawn much because, well, based on the fact that he literally just went for a single energy Power Heater last turn. So, I mean, we're in a great, we have a phenomenal setup. I have 2 Turtonators sitting there with energy on them to be able to Shell Trap, potentially Bright Flame next turn. I have a couple Volcanion. I have Sudowoodo that is going to be limiting my opponent's bench space, and my opponent's going to Lysandre. Brings up the Turtonator. I guess he just wants to get more damage onto it. I mean, it makes sense because, I mean, that's the closest thing my opponent has to a knockout. But Sudowoodo, oh my gosh, that card is so great. I mean, even if my opponent gets a Hoopa, then, I mean, normally, if you see a Hoopa in a Volcanion deck, you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to get me 2 Volcanions and a Shaymin. Well, in this case, my opponent already has a setup to where 2 Volcanions and to getting a Hoopa would do absolutely nothing, because it would just be like, well, now Hoopa's on my bench and I got one thing, but I didn't get exactly what I wanted. Let's go ahead and Rescue Stretcher, do the Super Rod version of that, and then play down the Hoopa, probably grab another Volk and a Shaymin, just to draw some more cards, see if we can get some stuff going, because I will actually be able to one-shot this Baby Volk this turn with a Shell Trap if I'm able to get 3 fire energy. But, okay, so I do get that. Let's go ahead and Steam Up. Actually, no, I wouldn't be able to, because I wouldn't have enough energy in the discard pile. So, I mean, that's one thing that happens. I mean, you'll have energy in the discard pile, so even if you are able to Shell Trap, like, it wouldn't be doing much of anything anyway. But let's go ahead and Steam Up 3 times. Do I want to leave this guy active because he's damaged? No, I think the play is to just retreat into my Fighting Fury belted one that has 0 damage on it. Go ahead and hit the Volcanion for 120. And if my opponent wants to attack next turn, well, guess what? They're going to be hit for 80 damage. And yeah, I mean, I'm in a very, very good position at this point. My opponent does get another Baby Volcanion. And it's very fortunate for me that my opponent isn't drawing into anything. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that and say, well, we're just in a great position because we're outplaying. No, my opponent, unfortunately, has not been able to draw into much of anything this match. So that is unfortunate right there. And my opponent's going to Lysandre again. What's he going to bring up? Is he going to... Okay. So he's going to hit this Turtonator for 20 damage with Shell Trap. However, all I have to do is just Fisherman, get fire energy back into my hand so that I would be able to knock out this Turtonator. Yeah, let's grab that Fish Boy. And I'm holding on to the Float Stone because I really... Well, because, I mean, I have no need to play the Float Stone just yet. I mean, if I play it onto a Volcanion, my opponent will obviously not Lysandre out that Volcanion in order to stall for time. And if I keep it in my hand, well, even though my opponent can end me and it goes back into the deck, I have enough draw power to where I should be able to get it. But for the time being, I'm actually just going to go ahead and let this Turtonator take 180. Yeah, to let my opponent take a couple prizes. But I would rather have a fresh baby Turt, or a fresh regular Turt on the bench. And even though my opponent will get a knockout, I mean, I'm still fine with having just a field full of fresh pokes that have not even come close to getting knocked out yet. So yeah, my opponent will be able to Power Heater for the knockout, which, I mean, yeah, it's 2 prizes, but I feel like I'm in such a commanding position right now that I don't have to worry about that too much. Okay, so my opponent, let's go ahead and do that. Let's steam up once. And what I actually think I'm going to do is... What should I do? Let's Lysandre up the other Volcanion. That way I can take 2 prizes off of it. And then I'll just be a knockout away from winning the game. I don't need to try to knock out another Volcanion or another Turtonator or anything like that. I'll just be in position to win the game next turn, no matter what my opponent really does. Yeah, we do see another Volcanion come down. All 4 of my Max Elixirs are unfortunately in the discard pile, so that's something that I'm going to have to worry about a little bit. My opponent does have a Trainer's Mail, which could be kind of a problem, especially if he gets in and off the Trainer's Mail, which, oh boy. So, very unfortunate that my opponent, well, very unfortunate for me that all that stuff is just going to go back into my deck. And oh, I top deck a Shaymin. That is gorgeous. I mean, yeah, my opponent will be able to power heater me. And, okay, my opponent's finally getting going. But I think at this point, it's too late. I really do think that I have this game locked up. Because, I mean, what I can even do next turn if I don't draw into anything is Nitro Tank G. Actually, okay, so let's go ahead and play the Float Stone onto the Sudowoodo. Just because, I mean, I'm going to be throwing energy onto my Volcanions anyway. And then Shaymin for a fresh 6 card, see if we can get something that can work for us. Maybe. I don't know if that's something that can potentially work, but let's go ahead and just Ultra Ball grab. Okay, there's only 1 fire energy left in the deck. So the odds of me drawing into that off of a 3-card Lillie are very, very slim. I'm going to go ahead and just play down the Volcanion or Hoopa. Let's play it onto Volcanion just because higher retreat cost. And unfortunately, I do not draw into it. I mean, I couldn't have expected to anyway. But at this point, let's go ahead and just Nitro Tank. Throw 3 onto Volcanion immediately because being Fire Water, I'm going to be able to one-shot anything my opponent decides to put out there. I mean, if my opponent puts Baby Volk, if my opponent puts Volcanion EX, if my opponent puts Turtonator, my water typing will allow me to one-shot them without any steam ups or anything like that. So I'm forcing my opponent, I'm telling my opponent, look, the game's going to be over next turn. And by attaching to the Turtonator, I'm actually trying to kind of bait my opponent into knocking out this Turtonator. Because even with the Fighting Fury Belt, a 0 steam up Bright Flame is able to one-shot a baby Volcanion. Like, even with the Fighting Fury Belt. So my opponent has to address the threat in front of him. And if he does, well, all of a sudden that means I'm just able to go into my regular Volcanion and knock out whatever he used to knock out my Turtonator to win the game. And yeah, my opponent saw that, so he decides to just concede, and we are able to win the mirror match, due in part a little bit to my opponent not being able to draw much until too late in the game. But yeah, that is the deck, guys. I mean, I am so psyched about this deck. I loved it before it even came out on TCGO, and being able to play with it, being able to test with it, all of that really has just made me love this deck even more. I honestly don't know how competitive it will be, especially with Aqua Patch making water so much better, but I still think this is definitely a very, very cool deck that I encourage you guys to try out that is not super reliant on a ton of new Guardians Rising cards. So, again, hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and this is Styx, signing out. Why not? See you guys.